it? We get a countdown. There we go.
Hey, this is Luke and Glenn, and today we're talking about starting a business. Starting a business. Oh, that's not very good. Okay.
Here we go. I'll start. I'll do one.
Okay.
Hi, team. Welcome to the Growth Engine. Today we're talking about starting a business. I'm Luke. That's Glenn. And we've done some things in our time. We've started some business. We've failed at some stuff, and we've learnt lots of lessons. So we're going to talk about some of that today.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's a great intro.
Well, just off the top of my head.
I love it.
So I guess like starting a business, it's got to be really hard, doesn't it?
Do you know what? I think that in this day and age, it doesn't have to be that hard, right? Like, I think that coming up with the idea can be hard. But actually, like kicking something off with all the technology that we have today, you can try stuff out really, really simply. I mean, if I think about, Glamp, your and Amanda's business, that actually just came out of the idea that it was a real struggle to fit bed sheets. So, I mean, how hard was that for you to start?
Well, I mean, the hardest thing was creating the product, but in the end, if that's the hardest thing about starting it, then most people should be able to find something. I think business itself is always overcomplicated, and people make it so much harder than it is. But with Glamp, it took a while to build through prototypes and stuff, but it was ultimately just fixing a problem that we had. So it didn't really matter how long that bit took. It wasn't really until we started to think about, well, maybe we should sell these things, and then had a friend of ours say, well, I need to grab some of those. Can I buy 3 of them off you? And it wasn't until that stage where we were like, oh, okay, well, let's try. And the product itself, it's, for those out there, it's bedding for caravans. And the way we were making it, it was quite expensive to make. But we thought, oh, we'll just throw out a price to these people and see if they'll take it. And they wanted 3 bedding for 3 beds. And so we said, oh, $250 each, which at the time was like, well, that's hefty for some sheets, like that's quite hefty. No, like, yeah, no problem, that sounds good. When can you make them? And I'm like, okay. All right then, well, let's do that. Now at the time, that's sort of how much it cost, because we could only buy the fabric from like Spotlight, and it was really, really expensive because it was quite a lot of stuff. But ultimately, that was the first little nugget of maybe this could be something. And I think that's what people need to get to as fast as possible. So if you've got an idea, like try and build out something like really basic. Like our first prototypes were just really made out of old scrap material and looked terrible, and really are nothing like what the current product is today. But we're able to get it out and show it to people. So if you can get it to that stage and then ask someone for some money, that's always the biggest test. Because as soon as someone says yes, now that could be friends and family as well. It doesn't need to be someone random. But as soon as someone says yes, you've got something. Yeah. But then as soon as you get that random person buying it, someone who you have no idea who they are, that's when it's like, boom, we're away.
It's interesting as well that, like, for the person who said yes first of all, they obviously had a real issue, right? Like because you guys had an issue, so you discussed it with them, and so then the time that you were going to save them and the hassle that you were going to save them, like, far outweighed the cost, right? So in some ways, and looking at your price point today, it's around the same, but it's like that is the value, even at that price point, is way more than that, because people do want to change their sheets, and it's such a hassle. And so solving that problem, like with a service business like Spike with email marketing, it's email marketing is really good at 2 things: helping people stay top of mind and prompting actions. And what I found is that I actually started off selling email marketing software. And what we found is that people would stop using it. And so we wanted them to keep using the software, right? And so, but out of that came this idea of managed email marketing. And it was just because I noticed that people stopped using the product, and so we go in and ask questions like, why don't you do this? And saves time, like all that, didn't have time, all those things. And I think that if you can find something in your life that you're like, oh man, this is a hassle. And I know this is a bit cliche, and I know that there's heaps of people out there saying that, you should probably go onto Amazon or do some drop shipping thing or something like that. And you might. But the thing about it is that you won't be as passionate about that, and you won't probably put the time into it that you need to make it successful.
Because I think that's another thing that people don't talk about is the amount of time that it takes for something to work.
Yeah.
Like it can take, like I always said, so in a previous life, I am a reformed mortgage broker. And I would always say when I bring new advisors on, it's going to take you at least 18 months till you're making decent money. Like the first 6 months, you might not even get a loan, like you'll be just talking to people and talking to people and talking to people, trying to help them out. And it might not, the loans might not settle for a long, long time. Then that's when you get paid.
Yeah.
So, you've got to be in it and understand that life really isn't going to change in 6 weeks. It's not even going to change in 6 months.
Yep.
It's going to be a year to 18 months to 2 years before you really see something happen. And, if your goals are to replace an income or something like that, then it is going to take that time. But I think that's where having some interim goals can help. And where, like, if you just want to be earning an extra $100 a week, well, then that's something that you could probably achieve pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Depending on the type of business and how quickly you want it to grow, because everything you take out of the business is going to reduce the speed at which you can grow. But that's probably a tip for another time. But ultimately, I think like starting a business isn't that difficult, especially when you've got all the tools available. The hardest thing that realistically that there is to starting a business is probably paying for a laptop. Like that's because that's the number one tool that you really need these days to make a go of it.
Yeah.
Because everything else falls from that.
Yeah.
If you want to start a physical retail location, you still need a way of transacting with people. You can do that with your computer.
Yep.
You can run your all your inventory and all that sort of stuff for your physical location in your computer. If you're starting a service business, you need a way of communicating with people, which is going to be your email, ultimately. So you need your computer to do that. I mean,
a branded one,
basic level. And
a branded one.
Everything else, but
yeah. I think one thing that is worth investing in is a branded email, like buying the domain, like sell something first. And I think, once you've basically anyone can have an online business, right? You can target the world. There's basically no barriers, but I think start local.
Yes.
But also, that first thing to sell something and then to seem professional or to appear that, I think it's really worth investing in a branded email, because at gmail.com isn't quite the same. And yes, I've seen some businesses with that as their email, but maybe their back-end email, like their admin one, but their actual email address for the website and everything is a branded one. So I'm not sure. Have I gone forward? Because the first thing to do is to sell something, right? Yeah. And that is an amazing feeling. And to be honest, you could actually do that first few sales on TradeMe or eBay.
Anywhere,
right? Just have a go.
Yeah, like I mean, for a physical product, eBay, Craigslist, TradeMe, like any of those big marketplaces, um, excluding Amazon, obviously, because that's not like really a person-to-person marketplace.
Mm,
Um, but those person to Facebook Marketplace listed on there for free,
yeah.
you know, and just get a whole lot of is this still for sale questions, but you know, whatever. Um, but then, like, that's like a physical thing. But, you know, these days, people are very adept at buying digital products, like using your experience. Like, our biggest business, Little Ones, is just that. It is literally an advice platform which started off as a $7 PDF. And now it's an app, you know, where it's $60 to $120 a year, depending on what level you are. And, you know, 300,000 people have been through that program. And it started off literally as a PDF that was created, well, it was even pre-Canva, so it would have been in Adobe or something like that. But now you can just do it in Canva,
Yeah.
which is free for you to use. And you can get that out there, and like just using a service like Gumroad, where it can just go on there, live there for free. You pay, you know, a reasonable commission when you sell something.
Yeah.
But it's the start.
Mm,
And then you can build on it from there. You can build on that services business to include a whole lot of things. And, you know, like the business, the online business at the moment is all, you know, a social media marketing agency, which, you know, is actually a lot harder to do than you think, even though you're great at using TikTok. It's, it, but you can do that and productize that and put it on Gumroad to sell to people.
yeah.
But I think like for a first business, if you're trying to go big, you want to solve a problem that you have, and you want to be able to solve it with a skill that you've built. But it has to be a unique enough problem where the people providing the solutions isn't such a large market.
Mm,
That's where like that social media agency thing is just like that is a really going to be a really hard slog to get people to help you with. If you haven't been doing it for such a long time, then it's going to be a really, really tough thing to do. I mean, Glenn, you've been doing email since 2000,
yeah.
and it's still a hard slog because of the large amount of people in the space providing similar solutions, right?
Yeah.
Like you are consistently beating away at that. It is really hard work. You have the ability to say yes, but I have this massive experience running email, like sending billions of emails over time.
Yeah.
I know exactly what works. I can distill that down super quick and get it, you know, working in your organization really quickly. But if you're starting from scratch, like you don't have that experience to lean on. So it's much harder to show that how your service is going to help someone ahead of someone else. That's why having that physical product I really like, because it is something that you can go, well,
Yeah.
here it is. This is it. Here, touch it. Like this
Yeah.
is what it is. You know, like it makes it much easier for you to get runs on the board if you can find something that works well for you to sell. Now, that might even be reselling someone else's stuff that's not available in your area or geography. Like, it's definitely something that you can
Yeah.
start with. And that's the thing with businesses. It's about doing the reps. It's like going to the gym and you get stronger and stronger and stronger. Business is the same. You just get better at doing the things that need to be done. And you get to the stage where you're like, oh, I see that I can pull that product over here. I can put that all together, get it out the door, and actually launch it really quickly.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what happened with Glamp. Was it took us a while to figure out that we wanted to sell it, but as soon as we wanted to sell it, like within, I don't know, 2.5 to 3 weeks, I found a manufacturer in China. We'd placed the first order, and then we were on the road to getting it out here to really test how well it sold.
Yeah.
And then because we haven't done a physical product before, there's obviously a whole lot of other problems that come along with forecasting inventory and all that sort of stuff. But you're much more comfortable at solving those problems because we've done the reps before, and you know that it's going to be harder. Well, I knew that it was going to be harder. I just didn't really realize, I couldn't foresee all the problems, and they just pop up, So, like, for example, yesterday, which I haven't told you about, I don't think, we our shipment that we'd done a massive pre-order sale for arrived in Melbourne to ship to our Australian customers. So, it's still a small thing for us. It was 140 orders, which, like, I just blows my mind that 140 people trusted us enough to give us money before we could even send them goods.
Yeah. Off the back of a few emails too.
Well, quite a lot of emails. But basically what had happened is that the integration between Shopify, which is all our website e-commerce, which you should 100% use if you're doing an online business, and the logistics provider in Australia, there was a small thing where I needed to load the SKUs on these new products, but I didn't have them. Well, I hadn't thought about it really. One thing you learn. And they needed the SKUs to pull the orders through to their system. So what I did is, like 2-3 weeks ago when I figured this out, I loaded all the SKUs on, was like, sweet. And they were like, yep, that's cool. It should be all good now. We get to yesterday to where the product's ready to ship. And I'm like, well, why isn't this stuff shipping? Like, it's not going across. And basically every order that had come in after I'd made that change had shipped, but like 120 orders previous to that hadn't. So I'm on Shopify help, like, what's going on? Let Shopify, like, this is a known problem that we have, aka it's a problem that we really just don't care about enough. So this is the workaround. You have to go into every single order, cancel the order, and reload it again. Oh my God. I spent 6 hours yesterday just crept over my computer, tapping away, fixing all the stuff. Now, luckily, I kind of figured a way of which I could do it without cancelling the order. I could just remove the item from the order and put it back in.
Right.
So I didn't have to re-enter the customer details, which I was just like, in that time, I was like, if I have to do that, I'm going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
Yeah.
natural. Like, you put a person involved in something,
Yep.
in a process, mistakes are going to happen. So luckily, it shouldn't happen too badly. Somebody might just get sent the wrong thing, which we can fix quite easily. But it's just stuff like that which you don't foresee. But because we've done the reps before, I knew something was going to go wrong. I just didn't know what it was, and I just, instead of freaking out, I got really pissed off. But then you just sit down and you fix it.
I've had a I've had a similar thing where I remember I'd signed up this client and they had 40 real estate agents, and at the time something crashed, and it's near the deadline, right? It was like 6 p.m. and it was so stressful because it was the first email, and I was yelling at my computer. Like, I wouldn't have wanted. I was living in an apartment then with my to be wife, girlfriend, and it was just nuts. And I think the thing is that we don't want to let this put you off. Like, this is stuff down the track. Like, when you first start, I do think anyone can own a business. Anyone can. What you need to look at, this is where I come at, is what do you post about most? What do you discuss most? What do you talk to your friends about? What do you comment on the most? Somewhere in there, something that's causing you a problem is going to be an idea of a product or a service that you can sell. And do you know what? I think when you get to a certain age, look, my daughter's 12, got a YouTube channel, right? I know your kid's got one too. And she's already sold stuff by now. And even my son has sold stuff. He's like 9. And so I bet you as a kid, you sold something. So, don't ever say to me, oh, I can't sell, because you can. It's just that you haven't realized that you think that a salesperson is a particular person. It's not, because you're always selling yourself, ideas, opinions, things all the time. So somewhere,
can be a bit of a fallacy though. That's always the line that's trotted out. I had a lemonade stand when I was 8.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think, like, for me, that definitely wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I did get better fundraising, like for school and that sort of thing, as I was older, and that was certainly something that was pushed upon me. But it wasn't until I went and worked in a retail shop with it was a single, like, not a chain. It hadn't, like, the owner was there, and he taught me how to sell. He taught me his way of selling.
Yep.
And that actually really helped with molding the way of how I got to learn how to sell to people. And like, his thing wasn't like, go up to somebody and sell them. His way of retailing was very much like, just acknowledge them when they walk in the door. Just say hello. That's it.
Yeah.
Because you've already broken that ice as soon as they walk in the door.
Yeah.
And just say, look, if you need any help, I'm just over here, just sing out.
Yeah.
Like
that's a good point. That's a good point. You don't have to be the Gary V.
No, you don't have to be like in people's faces.
No.
And it was a ski shop, so selling skis and snowboards. So you're selling $1,000, $1,500 packages, like, it's big ticket item stuff. And it was very much like you're that consultative selling type situation. Like, what level skier where do you like to ski? Not even what level, like, where do you ski? Oh, I ski at Mount Ruapehu, I go to Whakapapa, I like to go on this lift. Oh, cool. Okay, so you're reasonable, you're on that lift, or you've never gone above halfway, so you're a beginner. Like, all of this stuff as just as being in that industry. So then you're able to say, well, this package is good for you. And that was how I learned how to sell, which is very different to the way that probably the internet teaches you how to sell. I think it's not something, selling is not just for an extra.
I had that. Yeah.
Selling is just
I was going to say that. Like, even if you're an introvert, like, you can sell something. And I think one thing you really got to there was like using stories to sell. Or I think my dad used to say, like, you got to like tell to sell. Because my dad always said to me that nothing happens without a sale. So this is where we've all come back to. But I think when people, they get a bit hit up, oh, what am I going to say and all that, it's like, well, what would you say? Like, what would you say to someone in person? That's what you write on your website. That's what you write in your emails. Because, look, we've dealt with massive, 7-figure databases, right? And the thing about that is that there's 7 million or whatever, there's millions of individuals who have signed up to the same thing. So you can actually just write to one person, like, just talk to one person, how you would talk to them. And I think when you write copy like that, it actually works really, really well. And, I think the idea of thinking about tell to sell, like, you have to tell people the features and benefits or what they're going to get out of having your product or service. With Glamp, like, you are going to get a good night's sleep. You're not going to be wasting time trying to struggle. You're not going to be like sweating over, like, lifting up mattresses and caravans and camper vans and like struggling over in a corner. You're not going to be doing any of that. And I think, so it's figuring out in your product or whatever you want to sell, like, there will be some.
Really?
I have a meeting.
Well, have that meeting somewhere else. I have to have meetings somewhere else.
The computer is in here.
I'm here. We're going to have to edit you out.
Yes.
happy birthday in
podcast.
happy birthday in person
Oh, Glenn's saying happy birthday in person.
Thank you. Happy birthday for you. When is
on the
it?
9th.
On the 9th.
Yeah.
Wednesday. Tomorrow.
No, is it? No.
2 days. Thursday. He's frozen.
Yeah.
Thursday. Happy birthday.
That is crazy. I honestly thought it was next week. No wonder Lauren's saying, "Oh, can you go into some stuff? See you later." Lauren had said to me, "Can you go and I want to get a new drill,
Oh yeah.
but I'm thinking about getting the Makita, getting a Makita, they call them, like there's a word for it. It's basically just the bit. It's got no battery.
Yeah.
So, and then because my drill, and then you're not having to use different batteries and stuff. So, hey, when she walked in though, I think where we were at was good. But so what we were talking about then is
what I was going to say. Can you see me all right? I'm just
You're-
very blurry.
it says that the actual recording is in higher quality, but yeah, you're blurry.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get it to focus.
Yeah, that's weird. It's focusing on your fingers, and then it went to your face for a second.
It was good before.
Yeah, it was.
That's all right.
Why don't you turn your
use the video anyway? But what I was going to say, that tell to sell is a really good way of explaining it.
Mm.
But I always think it starts at the very, very beginning, is asking questions.
Mm.
So asking questions of somebody who is likely to be your customer, because they don't necessarily need to be your customer yet. But you can say, I have this problem. I think you have this problem. Am I right? And they hopefully will say yes. And then you say, tell me about how, if I could solve the problem, what that would make you feel like, and how that would change the way you do things, how that would improve your life.
Yep.
And that becomes the basis of your content.
Yep.
Like, that's when you can go, okay, well, I've got this N of 1, someone with the problem. I can now explain how that problem is solved in copy, and that's the telling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily, we have full-length zips and the duvet insert's fine and it's all clipped and it doesn't go up. It's more like you say, the problem is getting the kids to make the bed every morning.
Oh, can I just interrupt?
Zip it up.
Can I just interrupt you there? What you're talking about then is about this. You're creating the story of the product, right?
Correct. Yeah, and that's how you're telling, and ultimately the story will sell for you.
Yeah.
But it starts with asking questions first, and I think that's where people get tripped up. They miss the asking questions part of it,
Mm-hmm.
and they start to think about, oh shit, like, how am I meant to portray this? What am I meant to say in this email, or how am I meant to talk to people about this? Well, if you've asked those questions first, you don't even need to think about it.
Yeah,
You
that's
just
true.
repeat what's been said. And that's where the introvert side of things comes in. There is zero, people, regardless of your demeanor, you ask questions every day.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest thing to do, is just go and ask somebody about it. And they're going to tell you.
So if we were going to, 3, 2, 1. If we're going to wrap this up now, which I think we can, the first thing we talked about was thinking about a problem that you have that you want to solve, or there's a product that solves it. Ask people questions who you think might have that same issue and problem. And out of that asking, you create a story that you can then sell with.
Yeah. And then that's how you actually sell it. And then just creating that product yourself is just getting some confidence in building whatever you want to build.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might have to spend a little bit of money to do it, but you won't have to spend a lot. You know, whether it is buying the domain name or getting a Canva subscription or that sort of thing. Now we've got another person in here. You know, anything like that. Sometimes you'll need to put a little bit of money into it,
Yeah.
but it will never be more than a couple of $100 to get going.
No.
And
Never.
also, I think people really struggle with the fact that it might fail. And ultimately, if you aren't doing things that fail, then you really aren't trying hard enough to get something to work.
Mm.
There is so many products and services that I've tried to create that have failed, and some of them have never got past really like the asking questions stage because people have gone, why would I want that?
Yeah.
Some of them have got much further down the track, spent a lot more money, and I've realized that what I want and what the technology is able to provide just isn't there yet.
Mm.
So you've just had to pull the pin.
Yeah.
Like the one particular thing, which we can go on later, was a cricket app that I spent almost $25,000 on before I got to the stage where this just isn't going to work. We just need to cut it and move on. And maybe in 5 years' time, the technology will be where I need it to be to do what I want. But again, like if I hadn't done the reps before that, I probably would still be pouring money into it now and it not working.
Mm.
But I was able to remove it and just move on. It
Yeah.
still really hurts because I think it's a great idea. But, you know, it's just one of those things which you're able to, over time, you get used to recognizing when things aren't going to work and moving on to the next thing.
Yep. Okay. Well, shall we wrap it up with find a problem, ask questions, create your story, and just go and sell. We believe anyone can start a business. So, look, we believe in you.
Go
See you in the next one.